What a difference a year makes. 1 year ago today, Donald Trump was celebrating the passage of a giant tax cut. Remember this photograph? That he claimed, against almost every expert opinion, would be a huge boost to the economy and to middle-class workers. His Treasury Secretary claimed that as a result, quote, the stock market will go up higher. A year later, all major stock indices were down today, and for the year by a lot. The Dow fell almost 500 points today, hitting the lowest level since October of 2017. In other words, more than a year ago. And as for those huge benefits to workers that Donald Trump promised, well, instead, companies spent their tax savings this year on record stock buybacks, while employee bonuses hardly moved at all. The economic uncertainty extends far beyond Wall Street. This week, the president announced another $4.9 billion in bailouts to farmers who are still suffering as a result of the Trump trade war. And despite Donald Trump's claim that he had reached an incredible deal with China as it related to trade, and all of that uncertainty doesn't even consider the daily White House chaos, like the resignation of the defense secretary, abrupt changes in military strategy, and a possible third government shutdown this year. Joining me now, Michael Moore, an award-winning, Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker whose latest film, Fahrenheit 11/9, is now available on DVD on demand and is the #1 documentary film on iTunes. Michael, welcome. You and I share a deep interest in the economic well-being of Americans. They were sold a bill of goods in that tax plan.
Right.
And we have not seen any evidence of gain from the president, and we careen from one thing to a next, and then in 24 hours we may see a government shutdown.
Right. The gain has been for that top 0.1%. They've done very well. But I wonder how they've been feeling the last 5 to 11 days. When will they decide he's got to go? That will be the interesting moment, I think.
That group has done well for a long time.
They've done even better now, historically better.
Yeah.
All the Republicans in that photo that you showed, standing there on the steps with him a year ago today, all looking so slap happy and all. Remember, it's not just Trump. All of the Republicans, all of them, nobody has had the courage to stand up and say this is wrong. This is un-American. This hurts this country. This tax cut, in a sense, an act of terror, because it's going to make the people who are already struggling to get by that much harder to get by. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And to alleviate their pain, how many more of those opioid drugs are they going to need? What will happen with their children and their inadequate schools? You know, the air that they're breathing, the climate change that they say they don't believe in, all of that.
You know very clearly that the opioid epidemic is a byproduct. You know, it was bad stuff from pharmaceuticals and it was bad stuff from pain practitioners, but it's an economic outcome.
Yes, and it also kills people. Our healthcare system should not be in the hands of people whose goal is to make a profit. That's their job. In fact, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to make as big a profit as possible. So that's why our health insurance isn't what it actually should be. It's why the pharmaceutical companies control all of this. But I was just watching the stuff with Madison. I was in the green room back there. And I think maybe this is the first time I've actually been frightened for the country. Frightened.
Really?
In these almost 2 years. Well,
because you thought Mattis maybe was the adult in the room. Maybe he was.
Yeah, I don't like that term because, first of all, yes, okay, all the adults.
Belittles children.
Well, I've often said that the only question we have to resolve about Trump is, do we try him as an adult? His behavior, the way he acts and behaves. But no, basically everyone on the cabinet who would have voted to remove him under the 25th Amendment eventually, they're gone. They're out. But no, I think what's scary about Mattis is that he's a guy, listen, this is a guy that isn't afraid of war. He, Colin Powell, they all went to war for Bush. Bush won. They all supported Bush too, up to a point. What you have now with Mattis leaving means that Trump is going to put in the person that agrees with him and is going to be his dog. It's going to do what he tells him to do. We have an autocrat in the White House. Anytime you have an autocrat, what do they want running the military? The person that is going to do what they tell them to do. We are now, with Mattis leaving, closer to Trump starting a war, because he will have, just as he's proven with the 2 attorney generals that he's announced since Jeff Sessions, he will find the person who's going to be on his page and does what he tells him to do. And when that means he just wakes up some morning and decides to go to war with somebody because he's so random about his behavior, that's how he does things. We're going to have a defense secretary that's going to go, yes, boss. And that makes it dangerous for all of us and for the world.
So what would you have done differently? One of the things I thought very interesting tonight was Jim Mattis's letter of resignation, which had not a word of compliment. I mean, virtually nobody resigns without saying something nice.
Right.
He didn't say that, but he sort of gave a lesson in what America's leadership in the world needed to look like.
It was beautiful. He said all the right things. It's not what I would have said.
What would you have said?
If I were him, I would have looked straight into the camera and said, I'm not leaving. I can't leave. I serve the American people. The purpose of my job is actually not to create war, but peace. The purpose of my job is to make sure that our young men and women who are volunteered to be in the military, which means all the rest of us don't have to go. They volunteer to go in place of us. They've offered to die, if necessary, so that you and I don't have to die. What greater gift could anybody give? So this volunteer army is now going to have to be told to do what he wants them to do. And if I were Mattis, I would have said, as the Secretary of Defense, I can't leave these good soldiers and servicemen. I can't leave them, and I can't leave the American people. So I'm not going to resign, because I'm here to defend you, the American people. He has to resign. Now, this isn't a coup. We need a commander-in-chief elected by the people. This man wasn't elected by the people. Let's just say it. He lost by 3 million votes. He's got to go. The proud men and women who serve in this military that I am in charge of, we're not leaving because we're here to serve you. Not ourselves, not him, you.
Yeah.
So you, the American people, have to fix it. You have to do it through your representatives, and I won't leave you to him and the person he's going to put in here who may take this country to war.
And it's an interesting concept. You know, that will last about 3 minutes until Donald
Well,
Trump
hopefully he'll finish with these words. We saw yesterday with his decision to pull out of Syria, doing what his handlers have told him to do.
And let me just point out,
Russians.
I want to put up one of many tweets from Donald Trump where he says, does the USA want to be the policeman of the Middle East, getting nothing but spending precious lives and trillions of dollars protecting others who in almost all cases do not appreciate what we're doing? Do we want to be there forever? Time for others to finally fight. Russia, Iran, Syria, and many others are not happy about the U.S. leaving, despite what the fake news says, because now they will have to fight ISIS and others whom they hate. It goes on. Vladimir Putin today, in public, on television, talked about how happy he was that America was going to.
Correct.
Donald Trump lies and lies and lies, but somebody believes him.
Yes.
Somebody believes these.
Well, let me tell you when he does tell the truth. He actually put Russia in that tweet. He's actually admitting it. He has learned, and he started this here in New York for 30 or 40 years as a businessman. He learned that if he did all of his crimes out in the open, in public, that's the way to get away with it. And so he just says it right there. He said, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and get away with it. That wasn't a lie. I think that's the truth. And I think there have been many truths he's been trying to tell us. And I think we all better wake up and have him legally, non-violently removed from office.
When we discuss all that has happened, I mean, just the list. This is just today: Syria, the House possibly, the government shutting down possibly tomorrow night, the stock market, all of these different things. And we talk about how the wheels are coming off, and people say the wheels are coming off, and guys like Mattis leaving sort of indicate some of that. In the end, despite the fact that Donald Trump got fewer votes than Hillary Clinton did, our system in this country allowed him to win an election. Do enough people think this is chaos? Do enough people think this is dangerous and scary as you do?
I think so. I think people's minds tonight, after these last couple of days, are just. I think people's heads are spinning in a Linda Blair exorcist kind of way, where we just cannot. When it spins back around, you've got to come to the conclusion this can't continue another day, another week. What are we going to do about it? You mentioned the Electoral College. That's why he's there.
January, right, correct.
Okay.
Are we fixing the Electoral College?
Well, it has to be removed. And here's who's really responsible for this is the Democrats. In 2000, when Al Gore won the presidency by 500,000 votes, that's when he wasn't allowed to enter the White House. The American people should have risen up and removed the Electoral College. And we didn't, and we let it, and it happened again 16 years later with Hillary Clinton winning by a large margin. And boom, she doesn't get to take her seat in the White House. Do you think for a minute, if Donald Trump had won the popular vote, that he would just go, oh, well, it's okay, I didn't win the Electoral College? No. I don't think so. You heard what he said before the election.
You and I have talked about healthcare a lot. You know I like the Canadian healthcare system.
Why would that be, Ali?
It covers everybody, and it doesn't cost us
And you
more
might
money.
have maybe grown up there.
Well, I grew up there.
And you got to see a doctor, and your parents didn't lose their house.
Correct.
If you had happened to...
My father had a stent. It cost him the amount that it cost to park at the hospital to get a stent. So the bottom line is most American people think that's the most important thing. It was actually the biggest concern on the ballot.
That's right.
That remains the best possibility, quite possibly, for Democrats to campaign on and to assure Americans that things like that need to get fixed.
Yes, and the new class that's coming into Congress, so many people came out. We had a record, the young people, 18 to 29-year-olds, 21% came out in 2014 during the midterms. 31% came out in this midterm. I mean, it's an amazing statistic. They have to see these Democrats in this Congress in these next 2 years do something, stand up for something, get out there and do the job that needs to be done. Yes, the Senate won't pass their bills, but there are other ways, smarter ways than the way Republicans handled Obama, to get out there and show that they're fighting for the people. If they become just politicians and just say the same old things, those people who came out in November, who hadn't voted in a while, they're going to stay home in 2020. Then that will be Trump's victory. So we have to make sure that this Congress stands up for the things that they're supposed to stand up for, what people sent them to Washington to do what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and others fight for these things. This is our hope, and this cannot time, and we are heading toward the cliff.
Michael Moore gets tonight's last word. The 11th hour with Brian Williams starts right now.